The recruitment officer stared at the application form with barely concealed disgust. Another human wanting to join the Galactic Defense Force. The Zephyrian's crystalline features flickered with annoyance as he processed the paperwork. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 50 standard years, and most species still considered them primitive warmongers. Name? The officer asked without looking up. Sarah Chen, came the quiet reply. The Zephyrian's compound eyes finally lifted to examine the small human female standing before his desk. She was unremarkable by any standard. Average height for her species, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing the standard civilian clothes that marked her as lower class. Nothing about her suggested military potential. Previous experience, fighter pilot, Earth Defense Corps, 3 years active duty. The officer's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was equivalent to a snort. Earth's Defense Force was considered a joke among the galactic military. Their technology was centuries behind, their tactics outdated, and their weapons laughably primitive. You understand that human pilots are typically assigned to cargo runs and patrol duties? We don't put your species in combat roles. Sarah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I understand the current policies, sir. The Zephyrian stamped the forms with more force than necessary. Report to Hangar Bay 7 tomorrow at 0600. You'll be assigned to transport duty under Commander HFY. Don't embarrass your species more than you already have by existing. As Sarah walked through the massive space station that served as the sector's military headquarters, she could feel the stares and hear the whispered comments in dozens of alien languages. The universal translators made sure she understood every slur, every dismissive remark about human inferiority. The hangar bay buzzed with activity as various species prepared their fighters and transport vessels. The ships themselves were marvels of technology that made Earth's best fighters look like ancient relics. Sleek energy-based weapons, shields that could deflect entire missile barrages, and engines capable of faster-than-light travel in atmosphere. Commander HFY, a reptilian Drakmari with scales that shifted color based on his mood, barely acknowledged Sarah's presence. Currently, his scales displayed the deep purple of irritation. You're the human pilot? His voice carried the hissing undertones common to his species. I specifically requested experienced personnel. I have over 2,000 flight hours, sir. In what? Those metal death traps your species calls fighters? HFY's scales shifted to a mocking yellow. You'll be flying supply runs to the outer colonies. Try not to crash into anything important. Sarah was assigned to an aging transport vessel that had seen better decades. The ship's AI, a basic model that most species had upgraded from long ago, greeted her with mechanical efficiency. Welcome aboard. Pilot Chen, I am designated as Transport Unit 847. Your first assignment is a routine supply delivery to mining colony Zerion 7. As Sarah familiarized herself with the controls, she couldn't help but notice how different everything was from human technology. Where Earth fighters relied on physical controls and manual inputs, this ship responded to thought commands through a neural interface. The weapons systems, though basic for a transport, were more advanced than anything in Earth's entire fleet. The journey to Zerion 7 should have been routine. A simple 3-day flight through established shipping lanes to deliver medical supplies and food to the remote mining operation. But as Sarah emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, her sensors immediately detected something wrong. The mining colony's distress beacon was active, broadcasting automated emergency signals. But more concerning were the 6 unidentified ships in orbit around the planet, their energy signatures matching known pirate vessels. Sarah opened a channel to Sector Command. Control, this is Transport 847. I'm reading pirate activity at Zerion 7, requesting immediate military support. The response came from a bored-sounding Aquarian communications officer. Transport 847, maintain safe distance and wait for proper military vessels to handle the situation. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours. 18 hours? Sir, there are 300 civilians down there. Your species' emotional responses are noted and ignored. Transport 847, maintain position and await proper forces. Sarah stared at the tactical display. The pirates had already begun landing parties on the planet's surface. In 18 hours, everyone in the colony would be dead or worse. The transport's basic weapons weren't designed for combat, and going up against 6 pirate fighters would normally be suicide. But Sarah had spent 3 years flying against impossible odds with inferior equipment. She'd learned to make every shot count, to use speed and cunning where others relied on superior firepower. Unit 847, she said to the ship's AI, "Show me everything this ship can do." The AI's response carried what almost sounded like surprise. "Pilot Chen, this vessel is not rated for combat operations." I didn't ask what it was rated for. I asked what it can do. As the AI displayed the ship's capabilities, Sarah began to see possibilities that others had missed. The transport's cargo bay could be explosive decompressed to create a temporary debris field. The mining equipment in her hold included industrial cutting lasers that could be jury-rigged as weapons. And most importantly, the ship's thick armor plating, designed to protect against asteroid impacts, might just withstand enough hits to get close to the pirates. Sarah began her approach, using the planet's magnetic field to mask her energy signature. The pirates, confident in their overwhelming superiority, had grown sloppy. They'd spread out to cover more territory, leaving gaps in their defensive formation. The first pirate never saw her coming. Sarah's jury-rigged laser cut through his ship's shield generators before he could react, and the follow-up blast from her modified cargo launchers finished the job. The remaining 5 pirates converged on her position, their superior fighters closing fast. Sarah threw her transport into a dive toward the planet's atmosphere, leading them into the dense asteroid field that surrounded the mining operation. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. Using nothing but a cargo transport and spare mining equipment, a human pilot proceeded to outfight and destroy 5 professional pirates in ships that should have overwhelmed her in seconds. When the rescue fleet finally arrived 18 hours later, they found the colony intact, the pirates destroyed, and a human pilot sitting in her battered transport, calmly filing her mission report. That was the day the callsign Thunder was born. The debriefing room fell silent as the recordings finished playing. Admiral Korath, a massive Ursinian whose fur had gone silver with age and battle experience, leaned back in his chair while other senior officers exchanged glances of disbelief. "Run it again," the Admiral commanded. For the 3rd time, the holographic display showed the impossible battle. A single human pilot in an unarmed transport vessel had somehow destroyed 5 Ravager-class pirate fighters. The tactical computers kept highlighting the same impossible maneuvers, the same split-second decisions that should have resulted in instant death. Commander Vexhai, who had been expecting to discipline a reckless human pilot, instead found himself trying to explain how one of his transport drivers had become the sector's newest combat ace in a single engagement. The human showed complete disregard for established protocols, he began, his scales showing the deep red of confusion. She engaged superior forces without authorization and used civilian equipment in ways that violated every safety regulation and saved 300 lives in the process, Admiral Korath rumbled. "Continue your report." Sarah stood at attention throughout the entire proceeding, saying nothing unless directly questioned. Her calm demeanor frustrated several officers who had expected the typical human emotionalism they'd heard about. "How did you know the pirates would follow you into the asteroid field?" asked Commander Thys, a serpentine Naga whose tactical expertise was legendary. "They were overconfident, sir. Their ships were faster and better armed, so they thought they had an easy kill. Humans have learned that sometimes the enemy's strength can become their weakness." "Explain." Sarah activated the tactical display, highlighting her flight path. "The pirates were used to fighting opponents who would try to match their technology. They expected me to engage at long range where their superior weapons would dominate. By leading them into close quarters among the asteroids, I forced them to fight on my terms." The Naga's eyes glittered with interest. "And the mining lasers?" "Industrial cutting equipment operates on the same basic principles as military weapons, just with different focusing arrays. It was a simple matter of recalibrating the beam coherence." "Simple?" Commander Thys's hood flared. "You performed battlefield modifications to civilian equipment while under fire. Our best engineers need hours in a fully equipped workshop to make such changes." Sarah's expression didn't change. "Humans have experience making do with inferior equipment, sir." Admiral Korath studied the tactical recordings again. What bothered him wasn't just the impossible victory, but how the human had achieved it. Every move showed careful calculation rather than desperate improvisation. She had planned the entire engagement from the moment she detected the pirates. What did you intend to accomplish when you first approached their position? Save the colonists, sir. That's not what I mean. You went into that fight knowing you were outgunned 6-1. What was your tactical objective? Sarah paused for a moment as if considering whether to reveal something she'd rather keep private. To prove that humans deserve better than cargo runs and patrol duty. The room fell silent again. This wasn't the admission they'd expected from a supposedly simple transport pilot. Admiral Korath leaned forward. You deliberately engaged 6 enemy fighters to make a point about human military capabilities? The colonists needed help, sir. But yes, I also wanted to demonstrate that humans can be effective combat pilots when given the chance. Commander Vexhi's scales shifted to angry orange. You risked the lives of 300 civilians to satisfy your species' martial pride? No, sir. Sarah's voice remained level. I risked my own life to save 300 civilians. The demonstration was secondary to the mission. Admiral Korath exchanged glances with his staff. The humans' priorities were clear, but her methods raised serious questions. No other species in the Galactic Defense Force would have attempted such a desperate gambit. The pirates you destroyed were part of the Crimson Tide fleet, Admiral Korath said finally. Their leader, Captain Zexron, has put a bounty on whoever killed his raiders. You're now a marked individual, Sarah nodded. Understood, sir. You don't seem concerned. Fear doesn't change facts, sir. The bounty exists whether I worry about it or not. Over the following weeks, word of the engagement spread throughout the sector. The story grew in the telling. A single human pilot destroying an entire pirate squadron became the stuff of legend. Other species began to take notice of the small, unremarkable human who had accomplished the impossible. More importantly, other humans began to volunteer for combat positions. Earth's government, seeing an opportunity to improve their species' standing in the galactic community, started sending their best pilots to join the Defense Force. Sarah found herself reassigned to active fighter duty, given her own ship and call sign. The other pilots in her squadron initially treated her with the mixture of curiosity and skepticism reserved for living legends. But Thunder, as she became known, proved that Zerion 7 hadn't been a fluke. Her first official combat mission came 3 months later. A Threnody raiding fleet had attacked a civilian convoy, capturing several transport ships filled with refugees. The conventional response would have been to gather a full battle group and attempt a rescue operation with overwhelming force. Instead, Thunder volunteered for a reconnaissance mission that turned into something much more. Using the same tactics that had worked at Zerion 7, she infiltrated the enemy formation and began systematically dismantling their operations from within. The Threnody were an ancient warrior race that prided themselves on honor in combat. They expected their enemies to face them in open battle, ship to ship, pilot to pilot. They had no defense against someone who treated war as a problem to be solved rather than a contest to be won. Thunder's approach was methodical and brutal. She identified the weakest ship in their formation and crippled its engines. When the other raiders moved to assist, she used the disabled vessel as cover while picking off their fighters one by one. The Threnody found themselves fighting an enemy who refused to engage on their terms. By the time reinforcements arrived, Thunder had destroyed 8 enemy fighters and disabled 2 capital ships. The refugees were rescued, and another impossible victory was added to her growing legend. But legends, as Thunder was beginning to learn, came with their own problems. Every success made her more valuable to the Defense Force and more of a target for their enemies. More concerning was the growing expectation that she could solve any problem, overcome any odds, win any battle. The weight of those expectations was about to become heavier than she had ever imagined. The emergency briefing came at 300 ship time. Thunder rolled out of her narrow bunk aboard the carrier Defiant and made her way to the tactical center, where Admiral Korath's holographic image waited with grim news. 8 hours ago, we lost contact with Deep Station Omega, the Admiral began without preamble. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures in the system before communications went dark. We believe the Krillian Empire has launched a full-scale assault. Thunder felt her blood turn cold. Deep Station Omega wasn't just another military outpost. It was the sector's primary research facility, home to over 10,000 scientists, engineers, and support personnel. More importantly, it was where the Alliance conducted its most sensitive weapons research. Intelligence suggests the Krillians are after the Quantum Resonance Project, Admiral Korath continued. If they acquire that technology, they'll have the ability to destabilize the shields of any ship in the fleet. The war will be over before it begins. Commander Vexhai, now serving as Thunder's squadron leader, activated the tactical display. Reconnaissance shows at least 50 Krillian vessels in the system, including 3 dreadnoughts. Standard doctrine would require a minimum of 2 full battle groups to assault that position. How long before those battle groups can be assembled? Thunder asked. 72 hours minimum, Vexhai replied, his scales showing the dark blue of worry. The nearest fleet elements are scattered across 4 sectors dealing with other Krillian incursions. Admiral Korath's expression grew even more serious. We don't have 72 hours. Our intelligence indicates the Krillians will complete their data extraction within 24 hours. After that, they'll destroy the station to eliminate evidence. Thunder studied the tactical display, noting the defensive positions the Krillians had established. 3 dreadnoughts formed a triangle around the station, their overlapping fields of fire creating an impenetrable barrier. 50 escort vessels patrolled the system's perimeter, ready to intercept any rescue attempt. What assets do we have available? She asked. 1 squadron of fighters, 2 frigates, and whatever crazy plan you can devise, Admiral Korath said. I won't lie to you, Thunder. This mission has a survival probability of less than 3%, but you're the only pilot who's ever consistently achieved impossible victories. Thunder nodded slowly. The math was simple and brutal. 12 fighters and 2 support ships against 50 enemy vessels and 3 dreadnoughts. By every tactical calculation, it was suicide. I'll need complete tactical autonomy, she said finally. No interference from command, no questions about my methods. Granted. And I want volunteers only. No one gets ordered into this. Admiral Korath's image flickered with what might have been respect. Understood. How much time do you need to prepare? Give me 6 hours. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Thunder gathered her squadron in the briefing room and laid out the situation with brutal honesty. Half of them would likely die. The other half would probably wish they had. To her surprise, every pilot volunteered immediately. We've all seen what humans can do, said Lieutenant Kekstar, a young Aeonian whose crystalline wings chimed softly with determination. If anyone can pull off another miracle, it's Thunder. Thunder wished she felt as confident as her wingmates. The plan she'd developed was complex, risky, and depended on split-second timing and perfect execution. It also required her to do something she'd never done before: divide her attention between multiple simultaneous battles. The squadron launched 8 hours later, followed by the frigates Stalwart and Resolute. As they approached the deep station Omega system, Thunder reviewed the plan one final time. Phase 1. Create chaos. The frigates would conduct a direct assault on the perimeter patrol, drawing the main fleet away from the station. It was a sacrificial move. Both ships would likely be destroyed, but their sacrifice would open a window of opportunity. Phase 2. Penetrate the inner defenses. While the Krillian fleet repositioned to deal with the frigate assault, Thunder's squadron would slip through the perimeter and engage the dreadnoughts protecting the station. Phase 3. Extract the quantum resonance data before the Krillians could steal it. This was where the plan became truly desperate. Thunder would have to board the station alone while her squadron held off 3 dreadnoughts. As they reached the system's edge, Thunder opened the squadron channel. Remember, our job isn't to win. It's to buy time and complete the mission. If I don't make it back, Kekstar has command. Get our people home. Negative, Thunder, came the reply from multiple voices. We all go home or none of us do. Thunder smiled grimly. Humans weren't the only species capable of stubborn loyalty. The battle began exactly as planned. The frigates emerged from hyperspace directly in the path of the patrol fleet, weapons blazing. Caught off guard by the suicidal assault, the Krillians scrambled to respond, pulling ships away from the station to deal with the unexpected threat. In the confusion, Thunder's squadron slipped past the perimeter and raced toward the station. The 3 dreadnoughts, massive ships each the size of a city block, turned to intercept them with ponderous grace. Break formation, Thunder commanded. Execute pattern Omega, Adern. Omega was something Thunder had developed during her time fighting pirates, a seemingly random series of maneuvers that actually served to divide enemy attention, while creating overlapping fields of covering fire. Against a conventional enemy, it was highly effective. Against 3 dreadnoughts with overwhelming firepower, it should have been pointless. The key was understanding how the Krillians thought. They were a proud, ancient race that valued honor and direct confrontation. They expected their enemies to mass their forces and attack the strongest point of their defense. The idea that 12 small fighters would split up and attack from multiple directions simultaneously went against every tactical doctrine they knew. Thunder's fighter danced between the massive weapons arrays of the lead dreadnought, using its own bulk as cover, while her wingmates attacked the other two ships. Energy beams that could vaporize a frigate scorched past her canopy as she wove between the giant ship's defensive turrets. Her target was the dreadnought's main communications array. If she could disable it, the Krillian commander would lose coordination with his fleet. The array was heavily shielded and defended, but Thunder had learned long ago that the heaviest defenses often protected the most vulnerable targets. She lined up her approach, diving toward the communications array through a storm of defensive fire. At the last possible second, she triggered her fighter's emergency power dump, channeling every available joule into her weapon systems. The concentrated blast punched through the array's shields and reduced the delicate equipment to expanding plasma. The dreadnought's communications went silent just as Thunder pulled up from her attack run. 1 down, 2 to go. But as Thunder prepared for her next attack, long-range sensors detected something that made her blood run cold. The main Krillian fleet was returning from their engagement with the frigates. In 15 minutes, the system would be swarming with enemy ships. Time had just run out. Thunder watched the tactical display with cold calculation as the main Krillian fleet burned hard toward their position. 50 ships moving in perfect formation, their commanders confident that overwhelming force would crush the small human squadron. They were probably right. All fighters, implement Broken Arrow protocol, Thunder commanded over the squadron channel. Silence filled the comm for several seconds. Broken Arrow was a desperate last resort tactic that had never been attempted outside of simulations. It required precise timing, perfect coordination, and a willingness to sacrifice everything for mission success. Thunder confirmed Broken Arrow. Lieutenant Kextar's voice cracked slightly. That's a suicide run. Confirmed. Execute immediately. The squadron split into 3 groups of 4 fighters each. The first group, led by Kextar, would continue engaging the dreadnoughts in a frontal assault designed to draw their attention. The second group would position themselves between the station and the approaching fleet, ready to intercept any ships that broke through. Thunder would take the third group on a high-speed run directly at the station's docking bay. Their job was to get her aboard so she could reach the quantum resonance laboratory before the Krillians completed their data theft. As her fighter screamed toward the massive station, Thunder's mind raced through the technical schematics she'd memorized. Deep Station Omega was a marvel of engineering, with multiple redundant systems and heavily armored sections designed to withstand attack. Getting inside would be the easy part at finding the laboratory and extracting the data before the Krillians. Kilder would be considerably harder. Her 3 wingmates formed a protective triangle around Thunder's fighter as they approached the station's outer hull. Defensive turrets tracked their movement, but the weapons were designed to engage large ships, not individual fighters moving at maximum velocity. Docking Bay 7 is sealed, reported her tactical officer. Krillian forces have welded the blast door shut. Thunder didn't slow down. Instead, she armed her fighter's emergency self-destruct system and aimed directly at the sealed doors. Thunder, what are you doing? Kextar's voice came through the static-filled comm. What humans do best, Thunder replied. Improvising. At the last possible second, Thunder ejected from her fighter. The small escape pod's emergency thrusters fired, slowing her descent just enough to survive as her fighter slammed into the docking bay doors. The explosion tore through the reinforced blast shutters like tissue paper, creating a gaping hole in the station's hull. Thunder's escape pod tumbled through the breach and crashed into the docking bay's deck plating. Emergency force fields activated automatically, sealing the hull breach and restoring atmosphere to the bay. She climbed out of the smoking pod and surveyed her surroundings. The docking bay was empty except for scattered debris and the twisted remains of her fighter. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the massive space. Thunder activated her personal scanner and located the nearest maintenance shaft. The Krillians would have secured the main corridors, but they probably hadn't bothered with the service tunnels that honeycombed the station. As she crawled through the narrow passages, Thunder could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the station's hull. Her squadron was still fighting, still buying her precious time. She couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. The quantum resonance laboratory was located in the station's most secure section, surrounded by multiple layers of shielding and defensive systems. Thunder emerged from the maintenance shaft 3 levels above the lab and began making her way downward through the station's emergency access. Frozen, she encountered her first Krillian. Patrol on level 47-3. Soldiers in powered armor were systematically searching the science sections, looking for any survivors who might interfere with their mission. They moved with the confidence of a species that had conquered half the galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. Thunder waited until they passed her hiding spot, then dropped from the ceiling behind the trailing soldier. Her combat knife found the weak point where his helmet joined his chest armor, and he dropped silently to the deck. The second soldier turned at the sound, but Thunder was already moving. She grabbed his weapon arm and used his own momentum to send him crashing into the bulkhead. The impact cracked his helmet, and a follow-up strike with her knife finished him. The third Krillian was faster, bringing his weapon to bear before Thunder could reach him. She threw herself sideways as energy bolts scorched the air where she'd been standing, then rolled behind a support beam for cover. The Krillian advanced methodically, his weapon sweeping back and forth as he searched for a target. Thunder waited until he was close enough, then triggered the manual release on a nearby fire suppression system. Thick foam filled the corridor, obscuring visibility and coating everything in slippery chemical residue. The Krillian warrior struggled to maintain his footing as Thunder emerged from the foam like a ghost, striking before he could react. 3 soldiers down, but Thunder knew there would be many more between her and the laboratory. She stripped the best equipment from the fallen Krillians and continued deeper into the station. The quantum resonance laboratory occupied an entire deck near the station's core. As Thunder approached the main entrance, she could see the sophisticated equipment the Krillians had brought to steal the research data. Their technicians worked with mechanical precision, downloading decades of Alliance research onto portable storage devices. Thunder counted 12 Krillians in the laboratory, plus at least 4 guards at the entrance. Against normal opponents, those odds would be suicide. But Thunder had learned something important. During her time fighting impossible battles, the enemy's strength could always become their weakness if you understood how to use it. Against them, the Krillians were so focused on their data theft that they hadn't considered the possibility of a single human infiltrator. Their guards watched the main corridors while their technicians worked, never imagining that someone might attack from within the laboratory itself. Thunder made her way to the upper observation deck that overlooked the lab. From there, she could see the main quantum resonance array, a delicate construction of crystalline matrices and exotic matter containment fields. The device was beautiful, elegant, and incredibly unstable, which gave Thunder an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. She studied the array's technical readouts on her stolen scanner, calculating power flows and containment field strengths. If she could overload the primary resonance chamber while the Krillians were connected to it, the resulting feedback would destroy their equipment and fry their data storage devices. It would also probably vaporize half the deck and kill everyone in the laboratory, including Thunder herself. She opened her comm channel to the surviving members of her squadron. "This is Thunder. Mission priority is confirmed. Do not attempt rescue. Repeat, do not attempt rescue." Kekstar's voice crackled through the static. "Thunder, we're down to 6 fighters. The dreadnoughts are closing fast. Whatever you're going to do it now." Thunder looked down at the Krillian technicians working frantically to complete their theft. In a few minutes, they would have everything they needed to win the war. Unless she stopped them. She began entering the overload sequence into the quantum resonance array's control system. The quantum resonance array began to hum with increasing intensity as Thunder initiated the overload sequence. Below her on the laboratory floor, the Krillian technicians noticed the change in the device's energy signature, but dismissed it as a normal fluctuation. They had been studying Alliance technology for decades and considered themselves experts on human engineering capabilities. That arrogance was about to cost them everything. Thunder's fingers flew across the control interface as she rerouted power from the station's main reactor directly into the resonance chambers. The crystalline matrices began to glow with an ominous blue light, their harmonic frequencies rising beyond safe operational parameters. Warning: quantum containment approaching critical threshold. the laboratory's AI announced in its calm, mechanical voice. Please reduce power input to prevent cascade failure. Now the Krillian technicians looked up from their work, their reptilian features showing the first signs of concern. Their leader, a tall warrior with cybernetic implants covering half his head, barked orders in their harsh native language. Thunder didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. They were trying to disconnect their equipment before the array overloaded. She couldn't let that happen. She triggered the emergency locks on the laboratory's blast doors, sealing everyone inside. At the same time, she activated the station's internal defense systems, turning the laboratory's own automated turrets against the Krillian invaders. Chaos erupted below as energy bolts filled the air. The Krillians returned fire with their superior weapons, but they were trapped in an enclosed space with no cover and limited room to maneuver. Several technicians fell in the first exchange of fire, but the Krillian leader was adapting quickly. He ordered his soldiers to take defensive positions, while his remaining technicians worked frantically to disconnect their data-stealing equipment. If they could extract their portable storage devices before the array overloaded, they could still escape with the quantum resonance research. Thunder realized she was running out of time. The overload sequence would take another 3 minutes to reach critical mass, but the Krillians might complete their data theft in half that time. She needed a more direct approach. Thunder vaulted over the observation deck's railing and dropped into the laboratory below, landing behind one of the large equipment consoles. The fall should have broken both her legs, but her armor's impact absorption systems handled most of the damage. The Krillians spun toward her position, their weapons tracking. Thunder rolled aside as energy bolts scorched the deck where she'd landed, then came up firing with the captured Krillian weapon she'd taken from the patrol. Her first shot caught one of the technicians in the chest, sending him crashing into a bank of monitoring equipment. Her second shot destroyed a critical data relay, causing sparks to fly from multiple control panels. The Krillian leader's cybernetic eye locked onto Thunder's position and began calculating firing solutions. He was a veteran warrior with decades of combat experience, and he'd never missed a target once he'd acquired it. Thunder threw herself behind the quantum resonance array itself, just as a beam of coherent energy passed through the space where her head had been. The massive device provided excellent cover, but it also meant she was trapped next to an increasingly unstable piece of exotic matter. "Human pilot," the Krillian leader called out in accented standard. "Surrender now and your death will be quick." "Counter-proposal," Thunder shouted back. "You leave immediately, and I won't turn this entire deck into a miniature star." The leader's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Empty threats. You would not destroy yourself to stop us." Thunder checked the overload timer. 90 seconds remaining until cascade failure. The array's containment fields were already fluctuating dangerously, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. "You obviously don't know humans very well," she replied. Thunder activated the final stage of the overload sequence, then grabbed one of the fallen technician's portable storage devices. If she was going to die here, she'd at least ensure the Alliance's secrets died with her. The Krillian leader must have realized what she'd done, because his calm demeanor suddenly cracked. He began shouting orders to his remaining soldiers, commanding them to kill Thunder before she could complete whatever suicidal plan she'd hatched. But it was too late. The quantum resonance array reached critical mass with a sound like reality itself tearing. Brilliant white light filled the laboratory as exotic matter broke free from its containment fields. Thunder felt the device's energy field wash over her, and for a moment, she was certain she was about to die. The forces involved were beyond anything humanity had ever created, capable of rearranging matter at the subatomic level. Instead, something impossible happened. The quantum field didn't destroy Thunder. Instead, it seemed to resonate with something in her neural patterns, creating a harmony between human consciousness and exotic matter that the Alliance's greatest scientists had been trying to achieve for decades. Thunder found herself floating in a sea of pure energy. Her perception expanded beyond the confines of the laboratory. She could sense the entire battle raging around Deep Station Omega, could feel the quantum signatures of every ship in the system. More importantly, she could control the resonance field itself. The Krillians in the laboratory were caught in the same energy matrix that surrounded Thunder, but their neural patterns weren't compatible with the quantum frequencies. The field that had enhanced Thunder's consciousness was slowly tearing apart their molecular structure. Thunder watched with grim satisfaction as the Krillian leader's cybernetic implants began to spark and fail. His organic components fared no better, unable to adapt to the exotic energies that filled the laboratory. Within seconds, every Krillian in the laboratory had been reduced to constituent atoms, their weapons and equipment suffering the same fate. The stolen data storage devices crumbled to dust, taking the Alliance's secrets with them. But Thunder wasn't finished. The quantum resonance field was still expanding, growing stronger as it fed on the station's massive power reserves. She could feel it reaching beyond the laboratory, beyond the station itself, stretching toward the Krillian fleet that surrounded Deep Station Omega. For the first time in her military career, Thunder had access to truly overwhelming force. She could feel the quantum signatures of every enemy ship, could sense their weapons, their shields, their crew members. With a thought, she could destroy the entire Krillian fleet. The temptation was enormous. These same ships had killed thousands of Alliance personnel, had threatened to steal technology that could end the war. They deserved to die for their crimes. But Thunder had not become a legend by giving in to easy solutions. She had built her reputation on achieving impossible victories through intelligence, skill, and careful planning. Overwhelming force was not her way. Instead, she reached out with her enhanced consciousness and began to selectively disable the Krillian vessels. She overloaded their weapons systems, scrambled their navigation computers, and disabled their faster-than-light drives. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet had been rendered helpless. The quantum field began to dissipate as Thunder's enhanced state faded. She found herself standing alone in the ruined laboratory, surrounded by empty space where the Krillian invaders had been moments before. Her comm system crackled to life with voices from her surviving squadron members. "Thunder, respond. We're reading massive energy signatures from your position." "This is Thunder," she replied, surprised by how normal her own voice sounded. "Mission accomplished. The quantum resonance data is secure." Outside, 50 Krillian warships drifted helplessly in space, waiting for Alliance forces to arrive and accept their surrender. The enemy fleet that should have conquered. The sector had been defeated by a single human pilot and a piece of experimental technology. But Thunder knew this. Victory had come at a price she was only beginning to understand. 3 weeks after the Deep Station Omega incident, Thunder sat in an isolation chamber deep within Alliance Medical Command, submitting to her 15th round of neural scans. Dr. Veltar, the Alliance's leading expert on quantum consciousness, studied the readouts with growing confusion. The neural pathways are unlike anything we've seen in any species. The tall, willowy Centaurian physician explained to Admiral Korath through the chamber's transparent barrier. The quantum resonance field appears to have created permanent changes in her brain structure. Admiral Korath's expression was grim. What kind of changes? Enhanced neural processing speed, expanded sensory perception, and most concerning, an apparent ability to interface directly with quantum-based technology. She's becoming something beyond baseline human parameters. Through the medical scanner's transparent dome, Thunder could hear every word they spoke. The quantum field had enhanced more than just her neural pathways. Her hearing, vision, and reflexes had all been permanently altered. She could perceive electromagnetic frequencies that should have been invisible to human senses, could process tactical information faster than the most advanced computers. She was also slowly going insane. The enhanced perceptions came with a cost. Thunder could sense the quantum fluctuations that surrounded every living being, could feel the uncertainty principles that governed reality at the subatomic level. The constant barrage of information was overwhelming her nervous system, creating a feedback loop that grew stronger every day. "How long do I have?" Thunder asked quietly. Dr. Veltar's empathic abilities, natural to her species, allowed her to sense Thunder's emotional state. The mixture of fear, determination, and resignation was unlike anything the doctor had encountered. At the current rate of neural degradation, perhaps 6 months before complete cognitive breakdown, she admitted, "I'm sorry. We're working on treatments, but quantum consciousness is still theoretical science. We don't know how to reverse what's happened to you." Thunder nodded calmly. She'd suspected as much. The quantum field had given her godlike power for a brief moment, but godhood came with a price that mortals weren't designed to pay. I want to return to active duty, she said. Admiral Korath leaned forward. Thunder, that's not possible. You're too valuable for research purposes and too dangerous for normal operations. The quantum effects are unpredictable. 6 months, Thunder repeated. Give me 6 months to complete one final mission, then I'll submit to whatever research procedures you think are necessary. The Admiral exchanged glances with Dr. Veltar. They both knew what Thunder was really asking for, the chance to die in battle rather than waste away in a medical facility. What mission did you have in mind? Thunder activated the holographic display in her isolation chamber. The Krillian Empire isn't going to stop with one failed attack. Intelligence reports suggest they're massing their entire fleet for a final assault on Alliance space. We need to end this war before they can regroup. The tactical display showed the Krillian home system, surrounded by the most powerful defenses in known space. Thousands of warships, orbital battle stations, and planetary defense grids protected the Empire's capital world. You're talking about a direct assault on Krylos Prime, Admiral Korath said. That's suicide even for you. Not an assault, Thunder corrected. A demonstration. Over the following days, Thunder outlined her plan to the Alliance High Command. Rather than attempting to destroy the Krillian fleet through conventional warfare, she proposed using her quantum-enhanced abilities to disable their entire military infrastructure in a single, coordinated strike. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Thunder would pilot a specially modified fighter directly into the heart of Krillian space, using her enhanced perceptions to avoid their defenses. Once she reached the capital system, she would interface with the quantum field generators that powered their technology and systematically shut down their entire war machine. The quantum resonance field isn't just random energy, Thunder explained to the assembled admirals and scientists. It responds to conscious will to directed intention. With the right preparation, I can use it to influence any quantum-based system in the galaxy. The risk of cascade failure is enormous, Dr. Veltar warned. If you lose control of the field, you could destroy entire star systems. Thunder's smile was tired but determined. Doctor, I'm dying anyway. At least this way. My death might accomplish something meaningful. The mission preparation took 2 months. Alliance engineers worked around the clock to modify Thunder's fighter with experimental quantum field generators, allowing her to channel and focus the exotic energies that were slowly consuming her mind. During this time, Thunder's condition continued to deteriorate. She began experiencing temporal displacement episodes where her consciousness would briefly slip out of phase with normal space-time. She could see multiple possible futures simultaneously, each one as real as the present moment. In some futures, she succeeded in ending the war and died peacefully. In others, she lost control of the quantum field and destroyed everything within a dozen light-years. The uncertainty was maddening. You don't have to do this, Lieutenant Kextar said during one of Thunder's lucid periods. The young Ionian had been promoted to squadron leader after the Deep Station Omega battle, but still visited Thunder regularly. Yes, I do, Thunder replied. This is what humans excel at, solving impossible problems through sheer stubborn determination. I've become something that shouldn't exist, so I might as well use it to end a war. The night before her departure, Thunder sat alone in her modified fighter, running through the mission parameters one final time. The quantum field generators hummed quietly around her, their exotic energies creating interference patterns in the hangar's artificial lighting. She thought about her childhood on Earth, about the dreams that had led her to join the Defense Force, about the impossible victories that had made her a legend. None of it seemed real anymore. The quantum field had stripped away her connection to linear time, making past and future blend together in an eternal present. But one thing remained constant across all possible timelines: the need to protect the innocent from those who would harm them. That core principle had driven every decision Thunder had made since joining the military. Tomorrow, she would carry that principle to its logical conclusion. As Thunder powered up her fighter systems and prepared for departure, she felt the quantum field responding to her presence. The exotic energies that were slowly killing her also offered the possibility of ending a war that had claimed millions of lives. She opened a final communication channel to Admiral Korath. Thunder requesting permission to launch. Permission granted, came the reply. Good luck, pilot. The Alliance won't forget what you've done for us. Thunder's fighter rose from the hangar deck and accelerated toward the stars. Behind her, the massive Alliance fleet watched in silent tribute as their greatest ace departed on a mission from which she would never return. Ahead lay the Krillian Empire, their entire civilization protected by defenses that had never been breached. Thunder smiled and engaged her hyperdrive. Time to prove once again that humans specialized in achieving the impossible. The Krillian home system was a fortress that had stood unconquered for 3,000 years. As Thunder's fighter emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, her enhanced senses immediately cataloged the defensive grid that surrounded Krylos Prime. 1,500 warships arranged in perfect geometric formations, orbital battle stations the size of small moons, planetary defense grids capable of sterilizing entire continents, energy shields that could deflect the combined firepower of a dozen Alliance fleets. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. The Krillians had spent centuries perfecting their defenses, creating a system that should have been absolutely impregnable. They had not accounted for someone who could perceive reality at the quantum level. Thunder's modified consciousness processed the defensive network's quantum signatures with superhuman speed. Every weapon, every shield, every sensor array was connected to the Empire's central quantum grid. The Krillians had unknowingly created a single point of failure that encompassed their entire civilization. As Thunder's fighter began its approach toward the inner system, proximity alarms screamed throughout the Krillian fleet. A single Alliance fighter had somehow penetrated their outer perimeter without being detected, and now it was heading directly for their capital world. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 300 fighters launched from the orbital stations while the main fleet moved to intercept. Energy weapons that could vaporize a capital ship locked onto Thunder's position. She could have destroyed them all with a thought. The quantum field that surrounded her fighter was powerful enough to tear apart molecular bonds across vast distances. But Thunder had not come here to commit genocide. She had come to end a war. Instead of fighting, she simply wasn't there when the weapons fired. The quantum field allowed her to exist in multiple probability states simultaneously, making her fighter effectively untouchable. To the Krillian sensors, she appeared and disappeared like a ghost, always one step ahead of their targeting systems. As Thunder penetrated deeper into the system, she began to understand the true scope of Krillian civilization. Their capital world was home to over 20 billion beings, while dozens of colony worlds supported billions more. This wasn't just a military target. It was an entire species that had built an empire spanning dozens of star systems. The thought should have given her pause, but Thunder's enhanced perception showed her something else. The quantum echoes of every Alliance world the Krillians had destroyed, every civilian transport they had vaporized, every colony they had reduced to radioactive ash. The math was simple. If she didn't stop them here, they would continue their expansion until every free species in the galaxy was extinct or enslaved. Thunder's fighters screamed through the defensive grid surrounding Krylos Prime, her quantum-enhanced reflexes allowing her to navigate between energy beams that moved at the speed of light. She could feel the Krillian commanders growing, desperation as their perfect defenses proved useless against an enemy who operated outside. The normal laws of physics, the planetary defense grid, activated as Thunder entered Krylos Prime's atmosphere. Thousands of ground-based weapons turned skyward, creating a web of destruction that should have been impossible to penetrate. Thunder flew through it like it wasn't there, her consciousness existing in the spaces between quantum states where energy weapons couldn't reach. Her fighter descended toward the planet's surface, toward the massive quantum generator complex that powered the Empire's entire military infrastructure. As she approached the facility, Thunder felt the quantum field responding to her presence. The exotic energies that had been slowly killing her for months suddenly stabilized, forming a resonance pattern with the Krillian generator complex. This was what she had come here to do. Thunder landed her fighter in the center of the generator complex and stepped out onto the alien soil of Krylos Prime. Around her, Krillian soldiers took defensive positions, their weapons trained on the human pilot who had somehow penetrated their most secure facility. "I am Thunder of the Alliance Defense Force," she announced, her voice carrying across the quantum field to every communication system on the planet. "I have come to offer terms for your surrender." The Krillian Emperor himself materialized as a hologram in front of Thunder, his ancient features twisted with rage. "You dare to land on our sacred world and demand our submission? You are but one human against the might of an empire. Thunder gestured toward the quantum generators that surrounded them. Your empire is powered by quantum technology that I can control with a thought. Your weapons, your shields, your starships, all of them depend on systems that answer to my will now. To demonstrate her point, Thunder reached out with her enhanced consciousness and briefly shut down the planetary defense grid. Across the planet, weapons systems went silent, leaving the most defended world in the galaxy completely vulnerable. The Emperor's expression shifted from rage to fear. Impossible. No biological entity can interface directly with quantum matrices. Humans specialize in doing the impossible, Thunder replied. We've been proving that since we first joined the galactic community. Thunder could feel the quantum field building around her, responding to her emotional state and preparing to carry out whatever command she gave it. She had the power to destroy the entire Krillian civilization with a single thought, to end their threat permanently by reducing their worlds to empty space. But that wasn't the human way. I offer you a choice, Emperor, Thunder said. Order your fleets to stand down and begin peace negotiations with the Alliance. Abandon your expansion and live in peace with your neighbors. In exchange, I will withdraw and your empire will survive. And if we refuse? Thunder smiled, and for a moment the Emperor could see the quantum energies that danced around her like living fire. Then I will systematically shut down every piece of technology in your empire. Your ships will drift helpless in space. Your worlds will go dark. Your people will face the choice between peaceful surrender or a return to pre-technological civilization. The Emperor stared at the human pilot for a long moment, trying to gauge whether she was bluffing. The quantum field around Thunder pulsed with barely contained power, making it clear that her threats were not empty. You would condemn billions to primitive conditions to achieve victory? I would give them the chance to choose their own fate, Thunder corrected. Your empire has spent centuries conquering and enslaving other species. Now you face the same choice you forced on others: submit or face destruction. The Emperor's hologram flickered as he consulted with his advisors. Thunder could feel the quantum communications network carrying frantic discussions across the Empire as the Krillian leadership grappled with an impossible situation. Finally, the Emperor spoke. What guarantees do we have that the Alliance will honor any peace agreement? You have my word, Thunder said simply. And more importantly, you have the knowledge that I can return at any time to enforce the terms. The quantum field around Thunder began to fluctuate as her enhanced nervous system approached its breaking point. She could feel her consciousness starting to fragment, her grip on reality becoming increasingly tenuous. She had minutes, perhaps seconds, before the quantum energies consumed her entirely. Choose now, Emperor. Peace or annihilation? The hologram was silent for several heartbeats. Then slowly the ancient Krillian ruler bowed his head in defeat. The Empire accepts your terms. We will order our fleets to stand down and begin immediate peace negotiations. Thunder nodded, feeling a deep satisfaction as her enhanced senses detected the quantum communications spreading throughout the Krillian Empire. Across dozens of star systems, warships powered down their weapons and began transmitting surrender codes. The war was over. As the quantum field finally overwhelmed Thunder's nervous system, her last conscious thought was of the impossible journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started as an unremarkable human pilot assigned to cargo runs, and she would end as the legend who saved the galaxy. They would forget her real name, as names always faded with time, but they would remember the call sign that had shaken the heavens. They would remember Thunder,